What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Dylan here. This is a new, different kind of video that I'm doing here. I got my boy Devin with me. He is an Eagles fan, not like AC, who's also on the channel, but I decided to get somebody I know a little bit more. So I got Devin. What's up, Devin?
What's up, y'all? Yeah, like you said, I'm a big Eagles fan. Yeah, that's kind of. I mean, I'm a football fan first and foremost, but Eagles fan nonetheless. And I think, yeah, my biggest experience as an Eagles fan was, or at least my first. I'm not sure. They were both. It was big and first, but the 2010 NFC Championship versus the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
I remember just sitting there watching like Deshaun Jackson run back that punt.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, like, and then I don't know, I was kind of hooked till after that. And then so here we are.
Yeah, it's been an up and down couple years for the Eagles organization. Sometimes it's got highs, especially in the 2000s NFC Championship games, but not getting to like the next step of the Super Bowl. Last season, Carson Wentz comes in, looked at obviously the Dak comparisons were in there. It looked like coming in this season. I know from my predictions that the Eagles were on the up and up. Like they're rebuilding process this year. No more Chip Kelly bull crap. We're here to make something work. And I thought they were 1 year away. Like I thought next year was going to be the year they were going to do something. But they surprised everybody. They went 13-3, and now we're at this moment. So before we get into like all the stuff with this season and everything, I want you to just give the fans like who's your favorite players, who were kind of the guys you liked growing up, and like what the experiences of an Eagles fan.
Okay, so I'll say my favorite players. I was a Michael Vick fan. I mean, before that thing, and then when he got out of prison, I was still a Michael Vick fan as the football player Michael Vick. I mean, excluding his personal life. But
Right.
and then he came onto the Eagles, and I was like, I mean, it wasn't the same guy, obviously, but I mean, I'd say Donovan McNabb, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just it's McNabb, and Brian Westbrook, Brian Dawkins, like just those iconic almost guys who were,
Brian Westbrook in like the mid 2000s, like or late 2000s, like that was. I just like watching.
Yeah, and I think honestly you could like take like LaShawn McCoy, and you interchange those two, and I mean to me they were like similar, very similar how they played.
Yeah. They're kind of the similar thing. We were talking like me and Mitch from the channel. We were talking about that. Like he did a top 10 Eagles players of all time, and he was debating number 10 would either be Westbrook or McCoy. So like they've got their similarities as to like. Mm-hmm. What they do for the organization.
Yeah,
so yeah, like for the Eagles, it's just like it's a different kind of situation. Like being from a Cowboys fan, I always just I don't know. I expect the worst. Like
it's the same over here.
I don't know. It's like and actually one of our good guys that's on the channel, AC. I want us to rebuild, but I got no expectations. Like I just kind of want to have a good season, and then. Here we are at the Super Bowl, so I feel although the Cowboys have 2 wins and 2 playoff wins in 22 years, so I'm really sad about it.
I mean, you come into this season and you're like, okay, I forget what the record was. It was not good, and we were under 500. I know that.
Yeah, you got Eagles last year were 7-9. Yeah.
Yeah, 7-9, and then so it's like, I'm coming in. I'm like, 8-8. That's reasonable. And then, here we are, like your dude said, here we are at the Super Bowl. And so I'm like.
Well, actually, going into the season, like, what were you expecting? Because I know you're saying 8-8, but, like, there was 3 teams obviously in the NFC East. You got the Cowboys, who were just coming off the number 1 seed, which sucked for me personally because we got bounced out. Who I had Kirk Cousins. They had some talent. And then you got the Giants, who had a lot of potential. With the cast that they had, like, what did you think about the other 3 teams coming
in? Cowboys, I think from I mean, I've always had my reservations about the Cowboys, but I mean, like, I think that with the whole Ezekiel Elliott thing going on around that whole season, I think that was a really big distraction.
Yep.
And then I think you have a declining Des Bryant, and then you have. I think they're trying to. You can't just pick up a few guys and then go back to where you were. You know, even if you want to argue that Dak is better than Romo or Romo is better than Dak, you know, I mean, whatever your stance on the matter is, like you're gonna have to get at least some sort of a rebuild in. And I think that like that was they wanted to skip the rebuild process.
Mm-hmm.
So like they just wanted to take the puzzle piece out with Romo and just put Dak right in there. The same thing with Elliott and stuff like that. And it could have went better this season. But
I think the best thing for Prescott in the first year was that Romo was on the sidelines. So like whenever Dak would make a mistake, Romo was like, okay, here's what you do here. And we've heard Romo on commentary this year. Apparently he's some kind of mythical god in the booth and everything. But he seems like he's obviously very knowledgeable about what he's doing. So I think that helped him last season, and this season I think that kind of deteriorated the play.
That because you know you've got. I mean, even if you know you don't. I mean, Romo's not an all-time great, but you still have a solid quarterback who has so many years of experience in the game. You know, because you can read. I mean, this pretty much goes for anything. You know, you can read the textbook, like the textbook definition of what you need to do. But I mean, until you get out there and do it, you really have no clue what's going on. And so when, you know, you breaking down coverages with Romo, you know, I bet that accelerated his development a lot. I think that actually helped him a good bit in that first season. But I think as for this season, I mean, what it seemed to me is that the Cowboys playbook seems to stem off of having a solid running game.
Yeah.
So like they're running all these play action plays, you know, play action rollouts, but then your run game isn't a threat. So nobody's checking to see if you're actually running the ball. Mm-hmm. So we're just gonna go straight for the quarterback every time. So that was I think that was my biggest I mean that was what I saw the most with the Cowboys, I'll say.
Yeah, I feel you. They struggled in certain points. I think the creativity was kind of lost this season with certain plays. And then I think the weakness of the receivers, honestly, was quite a factor. You talked about the declining Dez, who I personally want traded, but that's me. What do you think about what do you think about the Redskins? I know this is a team that's been kind of if you know, like, they're borderline playoff team, but what do you think coming into the season for them?
I liked what Kirk Cousins gave us in the past few years. A solid quarterback. I think what a lot of time the Redskins, they get ahead of themselves. So they'll play a subpar team. You know, like for instance, they'll go play the Chargers or somebody like that. They'll get a good win in and then they're like, all right, we got the playoffs. Like I feel like they get ahead of themselves ego wise, and then they think they're better than they actually are. I think because the Redskins defense is definitely where they seem to be lacking, especially in like their front four. More specifically, I feel like there's not enough there to really get like good pressure on a quarterback without having to send more than 4 or 5 guys.
Yeah.
And then that, you know, I mean, defense wins championships. So I think that's kind of how they ended up where they were. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Their offense is also hit and miss. Sometimes they're clicking on all cylinders, and other times it's, you know, why are we out here?
Well, and also like their receivers, like obviously with Pierre Garçon leaving, I can't think of the other guy off the top of my head. But you lost two guys that had 1,000-yard seasons the year before, and then the only thing you get in return is Terrell Pryor, who just did not work in that system. like at all. It was kind of a, why can I not think of the other guy's name?
Yeah,
I'll put Tex in here. Like that's the guy I was. I'll figure it out.
yeah.
But yeah, that kind of hurt them. Injuries obviously played a big factor. The Redskins always seem like a team that has promise, but they never can reach their potential. That's just me personally. What do you think? Last comparison. What do you think about the Giants? Because personally, coming into the season, I thought they had the talents to be the front runners in the NFC, and then that clearly did not happen.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I saw the Giants. Like I saw the roster, and I was like, okay, these guys, NFC Championship. I was like looking at Eli Manning, and then I was looking at the receivers they have, and they got Brandon Marshall, they got Odell. They got all these guys, and it's like two top 10 receivers. Yeah. And then their defense was looking pretty solid in those like first 5 or 6 games. And I think definitely with McAdoo, he just kind of disrupted everything towards the end.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there were some tough losses in there for them. I remember. I don't have their schedule in front of me exactly, but they were. I don't know. I think it was just one of those things where the pieces just didn't fit right. I'll say, like, there's no real exact explanation for what happened, except for there's just a bunch of little things that didn't really pan out. And yeah, I was just kind of amazed that they couldn't even finish at 500 for such a decent roster,
Yeah. Like well, last season they built up. First of all, the receiver I was thinking about was Deshaun Jackson. I don't know why I couldn't think of it.
Yeah, I mean,
but like they came in, they bought like their defense. They bought pieces. They got Janoris Jenkins. They got Olivier Vernon. I was like, this defense has gotten a lot better. And then I'm not a fan of Eli Manning. I've personally called him the most overrated quarterback in the game, but. There's certain talents around there. You have all the receiver talent in the world. Like you've got OBJ, who's I think the number 3 receiver probably somewhere around there, like in the league.
Yeah.
You got Evan Ingram, who they drafted as a tight end, but really seems like he's a receiver. Like he doesn't look like he's a tight end kind of form. Brandon Marshall, who that was a complete bust on their half. Sterling Shepard, like they've got the talent to do it, but. The head coaching with McAdoo, I think, was the worst factor for them possible. Like that was a terrible decision. And that's the team that if they get in the playoffs, like Eli Manning, even though I don't like him, in the postseason, in the playoffs, he's very good. Somehow he does a very good job of getting the team riled up. He's got 2 Super Bowls, so yeah, it was disappointing. 3-13. Like I had them being the NFC representatives for the Super Bowl.
Definitely.
That was awful.
Yeah.
So you would have the Eagles. Where would you have the Eagles in the standings, like for the division going in? Because it sounds like it would probably be 3rd, right?
Yeah, the 2nd or 3rd. I think we would have probably lost to best case scenario coming in. I thought we'd lose to the Giants in the divisional game, and then. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this isn't at all how I thought it'd shake out. To be 100%, I was, when we were the Falcons game, I was like, or the Falcons game in the playoffs, the second round of the playoffs. I'm like, what? Like I'm a little stunned because they've like exceeded my expectations, even then.
Yeah, because when Winstead went down, AC was like, I don't, we were just kind of playing to hopefully, do well because you're at this point where it's like, wow, we've already exceeded, 13-3. Like that's pretty crazy.
I will say with Wentz going down, I mean, I never doubted Nick Foles because, I mean, if you go back a few years and Nick Foles was the guy, he was the starting quarterback. and then he wasn't great. Like it wasn't like he was. He wasn't a great quarterback.
You're talking about 2013 when he took over for Vic, right?
Yes, 2013.
He threw 27 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, so that was like
yeah. I mean, he was solid quarterback. I think people saw what he did in St. Louis, and then everybody was like, "Who's this guy?"
Yeah,
I mean, it's definitely. I mean, there's definitely some remnants of that where there's some 10-yard passes that would seem like easy completions, and then it gets a little hairy at times. But overall, he's just, I mean, and then you have to look at it that he's the backup quarterback.
Yeah,
the guy hasn't played all season, aside from a few select moments, and then he comes in, and then comes in the middle, deep in the season too. Absolutely.
Yeah, that was week 13, I think, when he came in. So
yeah, 13, I believe.
We had to come in. We're not taking week 17 into account because that game didn't matter. But we only had basically 3.5 games to kind of adjust himself before the playoffs, and some moments were sketchy. But so far in the playoffs, the Falcons game and the Vikings game, he's played pretty well, all things considered. I'll give him that. We're going to start off at the first game of the season, which was week 1. It was against the Redskins. Eagles won 30-17. I think they impressed some people with how they played out, because I picked the Redskins to win this game week 1, but Carson Wentz looked like he was a little bit more efficient. He looked like he was getting in his groove. The team looked very good, and shout outs to Nelson Aguilar, because this guy was a guy for sure I did not like last season. Like he was awful.
Yeah, definitely. Aguilar was, I mean, I think he's been the biggest surprise this season, because I mean everybody kind of knew that Carson Wentz, he was going to be good. It was just a matter of when. But Aguilar really came out of nowhere, because he was just a guy on the roster. And then now he's coming out, he's making these really big plays, and I don't know, he was definitely an impact player for sure. And then to come out and do some good stuff in week 1, definitely what I think the spark that I think helped fuel like a run like this.
Yeah, I think his confidence was shook last year because he was dropping the ball a lot, and it just wasn't a good fit for him. And then I was like, man, these receivers, I don't know what's going on, but he figured a way to get it going. So I definitely credits to Nelson Aguilar. Torrey Smith has taken his place though for a terrible receiver. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, it's Torrey Smith. I mean, I don't know. Like you had high hopes, because I mean.
Obviously he's still doing well with him in the lineup, but I just think he's like a couple years ago when he was with the 49ers and the Ravens and all that. Like I was like, this is a pretty decent guy. Like he's a pretty solid wide receiver 2 guy, and then now he's like, I don't know. I think he was like the lowest ranked wide receiver in Pro Football Focus this year, which is
I think it comes down to like he just doesn't click with the offense as well, and I mean, age could also be, a thing with him. Like it's because I mean, wide receivers don't normally last as long as other positions would. So but I mean, he's definitely not. I don't think we're losing anything from having him, but he definitely could be way more productive than he has been.
Yeah, for sure. But he's also not like a hindrance. Like he's not a bad guy. No. He doesn't. I think that both quarterbacks have realized that they got a little bit better talent otherwise out there, and they're like, okay, Torrey, can you make 4 catches a game and get us like 30 to 40 yards? Like
role player, impact guy.
They know how to use him in the best way that they can use him. So, but then that was week 1. Week 2. They were one of the more surprised teams in week 1. They came into week 2 against the Chiefs, who were also one of the big teams after beating the Patriots week 1. The Chiefs won. They got the pressure.
Yeah.
How'd you feel about that? Was the confidence shook a little bit, or was it still high?
Well, I was still coming in like, hey, 8-8, we're working our way there, win half, lose half. So I saw it like that was a good game. That was the Chiefs winning. It wasn't the Eagles losing, it was the Chiefs winning. That was a really good game, and It went down to the wire. Carson Wentz had a great game, 333 yards, and I think that I don't think necessarily I wasn't confident anymore, but I was more impressed with how, because everybody looking at Kansas City coming into the season was like, these guys are going to do what they did last year, and so Alex Smith and somehow I don't know what happened, but they fell off a cliff. But
it's been a laughing joke here on the channel. It's like, well, how do you have all this talent in first round against the Titans? Like, come on, bro.
Yeah, but I'd say it didn't boost the confidence, but it definitely was like, okay, these guys can hang with a potential playoff team. So I was definitely impressed with how they played.
Yeah, I would agree with that. They were definitely getting their it was a competitive game for sure, especially against a team that went against the Patriots and beat them in high fashion. So that was good stuff.
Yeah.
Then we get to the stretch where the Eagles continue to win. They got some good victories. They got some close victories. Week 3 was against the Giants. They beat the Giants. The Eagles had a pretty big lead, and then the Giants cut it down. But Jake Elliott's 61-yard field goal got the job done there.
Yeah,
that was hella impressive.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't know. I feel like over the years the Eagles have been like, we'll jump out ahead, and then we'll get in a little rut offensively. So about the third quarter, we'll be ahead 2 or 3 possessions, but then the other team's offense just starts catching up, and then I feel like earlier in the season, because Wentz and all the new pieces were getting their legs underneath them still, and so the defense had to bail them out a few times, I believe. I think that was also the case in Giants game, Chargers game, like that. So, but I think that was definitely the case early in the season. But I think everything kind of straightened itself out after that.
What did you think of, we were talking about this when the season started. What did you think about the defense? Because we talked about the front 7 being really consistent, but then the defensive backs without Darby. What did you think about that?
Yeah, it's more of getting the front 7 there so they defense can't get exposed. Yeah, and that's kind of been a problem for a little bit. It's been a problem because even last year and the year before, we'd go play some rather mediocre teams, but they would have a field day on the pass offense because we had a subpar secondary. And I think that it was I think the defensive backs have stepped it up definitely this season. But definitely I think it still comes back to the front 7 where you have all these guys. You got Barnett, who's been pretty good. You got Curry, Fletcher Cox, and always been solid. Brandon Graham, and then you have Michael Kendricks. You have all these guys who are they just have a nose for getting to the football.
Yeah,
which it's. Yeah. And then so I think that really helps out, especially when you're sending 5 or 6 guys on a pass play. Somebody's getting back there. So, and it was just a lot of good pressure for even solid offensive lines. Just a lot of good pressure to bail out that secondary.
Yeah, because I was doing a player comparison between the Patriots and the Eagles. That's the video I made last week, as this is coming out. But like a lot of their defensive linemen, I think, outstand the Patriots. Like there's just a lot of great talent out there that I'm like, they want to rely on their front 7, and obviously for a reason because they get the job done quite a bit.
Yeah, definitely so.
Going forward, they beat the Chargers 26-24. That was a pretty close game, but they still were able to do it. Easy route over the Cardinals. Then they played the Thursday night game against the Panthers. That was kind of a game I was questioning whether or not who to pick because the Panthers were 4-1, I believe 4-1 when that game happened. Cam threw all those picks. I don't know whether or not I'm not going to say the Eagles didn't win that game, but it was definitely a game where there was some interesting notes there. The Redskins, they beat the Redskins 34-24. We're getting into these games where it looked like the Eagles were obviously building their confidence because they have this long winning streak that they've got going on. They routed the Broncos about as bad as you could possibly get. Like 51-23, that's pretty big.
Yeah.
They destroyed the Cowboys 37-9 on Sunday Night Football. I felt so bad in that game. I was so sad.
Yeah, I was that week. Those 2 weeks, I was home for Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
it was a wild 2 weeks at the Drain household. My dad's a Broncos fan and my mom's a Cowboys fan. I was just, every day. I mean, even to this day. I mean, the Cowboys. I mean, you kind of saw how the Cowboy season was going. So I mean, you didn't really. You didn't really take as much joy out of it. I mean, it's still the Cowboys, Yeah,
that was the point where Zeke was suspended and like the Cowboys offense sucked. Like we were.
Yeah, no, definitely that. I wasn't, but even still to this day, I'll text my dad 51-23. Just a little poke in the ribs. But yeah, I think at this point, especially with like the Panthers game, you said it was kind of more the Patriots or the Panthers losing more so than the Eagles winning. But I think at this point, you started to realize like these guys are beating good playoff teams.
Yeah.
And, they're like asserting dominance, especially in that Broncos game. Like they just put their foot on the gas and never let off until the end of the fourth quarter. And I think that really, that really boosted the confidence for the team and fans all around.
Yeah, because it was like, if they were beating like subpar teams, it would kind of be different. And sometimes they were beating on some pretty bad teams, but there were other times you're like, okay, these guys are obviously going to contend. They're doing well. They're playing the full 60 minutes. They're not giving up on stuff. And I think that was the key. One player we haven't talked about, I think that was a key for this team was Zach Ertz. He's a guy that I think coming into the season obviously had the talent. He was one of the best tight ends of the game, but you could argue he's probably the third best tight end right now. Behind Gronkowski and Kelsey. What do you think about production of Ertz this year?
I think Ertz's production went down also because this receiving core had become a little more prominent. So, Alshon Jeffrey, Aguilar, they picked up the slack because it was kind of like last season, it was kind of like dump off to Ertz and hope something good happens.
Yeah.
And so I feel like, I mean, yes, his production has went down, but I think that's also because of the surrounding pieces have gotten better.
Mm.
And I mean, and there could have been some drop off, but it's kind of hard to tell when the team itself has gotten exponentially better.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I mean, I think he's still not. I wouldn't put him in top two. Definitely top 3 or 4, give or take.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he's efficient. Like I'm looking at the stats right now. He's 74 catches, 824 yards, 8 touchdowns. I mean that's pretty good, all things good, especially with the guy that you have out there like Alshon Jeffrey as your number 1 receiver. Who I really like that acquisition. Like I thought that was a great. But I think, what did you think of when Jeffrey came in?
Yeah, it was one of those things where it was almost a dream scenario, because. That's like, going in, you're like, okay, we need, you're looking at draft prospects, we need receivers, we need cornerbacks, and then it's like Eagles get Alshon Jeffrey and you're like, okay, now we just need cornerbacks. And then so it's like, you're looking and you have a really solid receiver in Jeffrey, and you're like, okay, now we have a guy, we have a playmaker on the outside, which was definitely what. There would be a lot of third and 7s, third and 10s, where there wouldn't be anybody who would just go up and get the ball and make a play.
Mhm.
You know, the ball would be there, but it's just nobody could go up and get it and come down with it, secure it. And I think that was exactly what Alshon Jeffrey has provided and is what we needed. And that, like, a lot of those third and longs.
Yeah, that was a play. Like, that was the guy that I'm like, first of all, I didn't know how Chicago gave him up. Like, I felt like they need receiver talent right now. But I was like, this is a great play for them. Obviously, with a guy like Wentz, whose production, he was getting a lot better. Obviously, could be an MVP. Needed a guy like that, and I think it worked. I think they needed a star. I think I needed that one guy that was there for them. Definitely. They went and beat the Bears pretty badly too, and then we got to the Seahawks game. It was a Sunday nighter. I picked the Eagles to win that game. The Seahawks production was always varied this year in terms of it, but they got the win. And it broke the 10-game win streak. They went 1-1.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, they were 1-1. They won 9 in a row, and then got lost there. So what was your feelings on that game in particular, though?
Throughout this whole run, I wasn't really expecting to get where we are now. I'll say, like, I wasn't nowhere.
You were kind of expecting maybe to slow down a little bit. Is that
yeah, definitely. But, because we're going up against the Seahawks, who have been playing really well. Russell Wilson was doing really well, especially early on in the season, and the receiving core that Seattle has, guys like Doug Baldwin and all these guys, where that was a real concern for me. Still was a secondary, and I think that kind of proved to be so, because all the touchdowns were in the air that game, and that was it was definitely like I was like, okay, this is what I was worrying about in the first place. But Carson Wentz still played well.
He still tried to make that
50 yards,
competitive as possible. Give him that.
And also another going back to the Alshon Jeffrey, Jay Ajayi, which was a steal of a trade. Just a 4th-round draft pick. I was like, and LeGarrette Blount wasn't producing how you wanted him to, but you go and pick up Jay Ajayi, and another guy who was added to this already decent run game and made it great.
I was very surprised when that trade happened. It was the trade deadline.
Yeah,
that one and the Kelvin Benjamin one really surprised me. But there's something on my computer. But yeah, I was like, that's. You're getting another guy that I don't know where I would consider him at JJ, but he obviously made the run game better. And in Miami, he balled out every once in a while. Had those big, couple games you would get 200 yards, something like that. And then you got, you still had LeGarrette Blount, who won Super Bowls with the Patriots. He was obviously very good. And then a guy like Corey Clement, who came in here and balled out, undrafted rookie. He's doing as much production I think you could possibly want from him. So that run game if there was one thing coming into this season, it was like I'm not like shining my light on the running game, but now coming out of it, it's like, okay, they did a very good job of that. And then we get to the Rams game. This game was extremely high scoring, 43-35. Like that's pretty good. It also kind of shows the weakness of the defense, but it was also the Rams. The Rams were the number 1 offense, so I could see it too. This is obviously the game that went towards ACL and apparently his LCL. I just heard that report today.
I know
that. They said like they did extra, but they're not saying it's going to hurt him any longer. But, he did that and then still played 4 more plays and threw a touchdown. That's pretty crazy. But what was going through your mind? Because like this guy was having a great year. He even had a great game in this game. He was 23 or 41. 291 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a pick. What was going through here with the injury?
I cried a little bit. My timeline on Twitter exploded.
Yeah,
definitely. But I was. even to this point, I was like, I just thought we were gonna get like a team like Atlanta. I thought we were gonna play Atlanta in the playoffs and get bounced out. That was still kind of my outlook on the season. Like, because I felt like this whole season was just gonna be development more so than actually going out and winning. Because you got a bunch of young guys on the squad like Wentz, and I mean, you had veterans in there, but I didn't think that. Once again, I didn't think we'd be at this point. And then also with this game specifically, the defense, what I've been worrying about this whole time, just kept getting burnt. And like you said, the Rams had the number one offense. So, and Jared Goff played really well this season.
Yeah.
But it's definitely not. It wasn't a dream scenario, but I mean, at the end of the day, got the win. The loss of Wentz was definitely not. It wasn't ideal in any circumstances, but yeah, and I think Nick Foles is, especially in that game. I mean, he came in late. I mean, 6 of 10, 42 yards.
Yeah, he did pretty decent. He technically sealed the game for them in that game.
Yeah, because he hadn't played in any of the previous games this season except for preseason. And this was in December, so I think he came in and provided what he needed to provide as the backup quarterback. Overall, a solid win. Definitely some issues that poked up, but yeah, solid win, I think.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It always sucks because this year in particular was the year for injuries in the NFL. I mean, we saw so many talented guys from multiple positions. You could make an IR roster like of pro pro guys.
Yeah, definitely.
Aaron Rodgers was on there for a long time. Deshaun Watson, OBJ. Really, it sucks. It sucks. But yeah, I felt bad for Wentz. He could have won the MVP. Honestly, I don't think he will. But he definitely could have if he continued to play the rest of the year with the talent that he had and what he was making this team going through all the great wins and all that. So it sucked, but I still saw that there was quite a bit of potential. And I was like, if there's any guy I technically wanted to be my backup, it would be Foles because he knows the system and it's not too far removed from what he used to do. So I was like, I'll give this a chance. I want to see what this team goes through. So they played 3 more games. They beat the Eagles, they beat the Eagles. I guess they beat themselves. They beat the Giants. Foles threw for 4 touchdowns in that game. So I was like, that's the quarterback I want to see. And then he played the Raiders, and I was like, I don't know.
Yeah. The Nick Foles. I mean, I was never. I say like, oh my God, Nick Foles is the guy. We don't need anybody else. And I think when Nick Foles was originally on the Eagles in 2013, I think he was solid. He was really solid when he filled in for Michael Vick. Like we were talking about earlier, he did what he needed to do. And I think also Nick Foles hadn't played a full game in I don't know how long. So I think that like the flow wasn't there because like last game was 42 yards, I believe. Just a few warm-up passes basically.
Right.
And so I think that Raiders game was just kind of getting the flow. Because it really these last few games didn't matter.
Yeah, you could technically say it was like his preseason. Like this was his
definitely
to get ready.
Yeah, definitely. It was just warm up, get your legs back underneath you, and prepare for however long you can carry us.
For sure. So the Cowboys they finished off the year. They lost the Cowboys. It didn't really matter. They even put Sudfeld in there, so you could tell how much they were caring. And then
I honestly, sorry.
No, you're good. What were you gonna
say? Go ahead. Oh, okay. I was honestly impressed with Sudfeld. He was. 134 yards. He didn't throw a touchdown or anything, but he was solid for the third string guy.
19 to 23.
Third string quarterback. I thought they were going to leave him in the whole game. Like I thought Sudfeld was going to come in. I thought he was going to play in the playoffs too. The way he was playing, I was like, okay, dude. Granted, it was the Cowboys defense. Not trying to throw shots, but it was the Cowboys defense.
No. our secondary is just
yeah.
But the Cowboys had like a win given to them on their laps, and they almost somehow lost this game. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
A 6-0. Like
yeah.
But yeah, that ended the regular season. Eagles came in 13-3. They got the sit back on the couch on the wild card round, and they played the Falcons in the divisional playoff. If the Rams would have won, they would have played the Saints in this matchup. But since the Rams got beaten by the Falcons came in here. I remember watching this game. I did pick the Eagles when this matchup happened because I thought the Falcons' offense is just way too inconsistent. I just was not a fan personally of this season compared to last season with Steve Sarkisian being the offensive coordinator now. I was like, the defense got a lot better, but like their offense just got stifled by a lot. And then the Eagles, I thought, matched up pretty well. So going into this game, what was the feel? Were you confident? Were you a little hesitant? What was the thought?
I mean, this was the scenario I was thinking of when the season started. We'll roll on. Maybe. I didn't think we would get to the division, I didn't think we'd get this far. I didn't think we'd get out of the NFC East. But then I'm like, well, okay. If so, then okay, we'll just get bounced out by the Falcons, which was lining up to happen.
Uh-huh.
But then, then you saw the season the Falcons were having. And obviously this roster is good enough to get to a Super Bowl.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so, and I think this, like, a win here was, that was pretty solid for a team with your backup quarterback in. And I think I was confident in the defense. I'll say that. I was very confident in the defense. It was the offense that I was more concerned about, but I think that this gives more credit to Doug Peterson.
Yeah.
And just, a really good head coach. And I think he kind of rallied the troops and was like, we got this. And I think that really sparked, not sparked, I won't say sparked, because it was a solid performance from Foles. It wasn't, anything spectacular, but
no, but it was at least efficient. 23-30.
Yeah,
I think that every day.
Yeah, enough to get the job done. Which, and I think also the defense was I know the defense was the primary factor in this win.
And the good thing you could tell from the Eagles win that like the defense was going to step up because the only 10 points the Falcons scored was they scored a field goal off of the Jay fumble, and then they got basically an easy touchdown when the Eagles muffed that punt, and the Falcons just got pretty easy field advantage, which they almost screwed it up. Like they had almost a wide open touchdown on the right side on 2nd and goal to their tight end, and I'm like, why do you not throw it? And then like fourth and goal, like Matt Ryan gets thrown away, still is able to throw like a bucket, like a basketball throw. But I was like, this defense really going in the NFC Championship game. I was like, this defense is going to show out. Like there is a lot of potential here. I like what I saw out of them. They were gritty. They wanted to put the aggression on the Falcons. For a guy like Matt Ryan, who obviously was the MVP last year, he's a top 10 QB. It was good to see the production that the Eagles brought for the defense. So that's what I saw of it personally.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And then we get to the NFC Championship game. They played the Vikings. But this was, as of right now, last week. The Vikings came in. They won against the Saints in the craziest fashion possible. They also had a great defense coming in. So I was like, this is a pretty good match. It was almost the exact same like team playing each other, I felt like, because the defenses were really good. They were really solid. I think Minnesota's was a little bit better. But the quarterback of Case Keenum and Nick Foles, two guys that they used to be with the Rams together. By the way, Jeff Fisher is terrible because he had both of these guys. Still got him to 4-12. But he was the key. These were the two QBs. A lot of injuries for both teams. We haven't even really. I guess we talked about Wentz, but Peters got hurt. Darren Sproles.
Yeah.
Man, that's gonna say he tore his ACL and broke his arm in the same play. Like,
yeah, that play was one of those like it was just it was kind of like the Gordon Hayward injury
yeah,
at the beginning of the NBA season, where it's like you're just watching and you like, you're just kind of shocked because like for that to physically happen to somebody, like because like if you like I watched the play in like slow motion, and the way he just got spun around, I was like, oh my god. And I mean I love Darren Sproles. He was a really solid like specialty guy, which was definitely like and I think Corey Clement, he came in and he definitely picked up the slack that Sproles, like the lack of Sproles was there for. But yeah, no, the injuries have been, I think it showed this overall toughness of the team itself to play through those injuries. I mean, not necessarily guys playing through those injuries, but like the holes, the injuries left in the team, in the roster, guys really picking up the slack.
Yeah, I totally agree, and that's why I also think Doug Peterson should be getting head coach of the year for all this stuff. I mean, this team has worked around that kind of situation, so I agree with that. They played the Vikings, who also lost their quarterback. They lost Sam Bradford. They lost Dalvin Cook in week 4. It was kind of weird. It was a weird situation. And the Eagles destroyed the Vikings, like just decimated them. I was not expecting that. I picked the Vikings to win. But even if the Eagles were going to win, I was like, this is not the way I thought it was going to happen.
Yeah.
Like Foles, 26-33, 352, 3 touchdowns. There was a lot of creative plays. Torrey Smith got that touchdown in the third quarter. I was like, damn, like this team came in. But Patrick, I think the tide really changed when Patrick Robinson got that pick 6, made it 7-7, and then just bam, second quarter touchdown from Blunt, bam, Alshon Jeffrey touchdown, bam, the field goal, and then the Torrey Smith one basically just put it out of it. What were your thoughts then? Like, because you got to be like really excited seeing like this blowout victory happen.
Yeah, I was. I missed most of the first half. I was working on a project, and then I was asking. I was like, I would just refresh the score and I'd refresh the the game summary, and then I see like, oh, well, like, and at first I thought this was gonna be like you said, the Vikings had great defense. Eagles had a great. I thought this was going to be a nickel and dime game, and then the second quarter comes up. Vikings haven't scored at all. Eagles have 17 points. I'm like, oh, okay. And then I watched the second half, and then I'm like, oh, like these guys are really, they're really doing it. And I think it was more honestly the Vikings losing that game more so than the Eagles. I mean, Foles had a great performance, 352 yards, 3 touchdowns, and the run game. And as for the Eagles' run game, I don't think there's any guy who's lights out, but everyone who runs the ball is solid. Jay Ajayi, LeGarrette Blount, Corey Clement, all these guys just solid running backs. So I think the versatility overall of the lineup for that really provides some good relief for everybody. And yeah, I think it was a good win for Nick Foles more specifically because I mean he goes out and because everybody's like, oh, it's Nick Foles, who's this guy anyways? And then he goes out there and drops this pretty good stat line, and then you're like, oh, Nick Foles. And I mean you have your reservations still because he's the backup quarterback, but I mean I'm confident in Foles. I was never not confident in him.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was obviously you want a confidence booster. I think we talked about that on the preview, like me and the other guys on the channel. And you want a guy like him because early on in these games, I think Foles kind of struggles. Like the first possession or two, it's like he needs to get his feet going for him. But I think after this win, it was like, man, I can prove myself. I can make myself a story with this kind of thing. So I was happy about that. But then the Vikings, also like you said, they kind of just dropped the ball. Like I think maybe they were still hyped from like winning that game so greatly against the Saints in the divisional. And they're like, all right, let's ride off of that, and then didn't really game plan. I don't know, but it was a good win for the Eagles nonetheless. I mean, 31 points difference. I would celebrate about that. So now we're here to Super Bowl 52. Patriots, Eagles. It's going to be a big matchup. The Patriots, they played their game, AFC Championship game. They won 24-20 against the Jags and that really good defense. I think they matched up very well against them. That was a hard game. Now we're at this scenario, the two number 1 seeds again. The line right now is 4.5 for the Eagles, for the Patriots, which I think is a pretty solid line overall. But what are you looking for? Because I know the Patriots, it's like two almost completely different stories. The Patriots are the dominant team, AFC Championship. They've been there the last 8 years, 7 or 8 years in the AFC Championship game at least. They've won 5 Super Bowls in this time. The Eagles, they always fight their way, but they don't get to this kind of moment. We've seen this matchup in the Super Bowl before. Granted, way different teams for the most part, but
yeah.
What are you expecting in this game here?
I mean, as for matchups, I think the Patriots defense isn't. I'm not saying it's not good, but it's definitely not an elite level defense as compared to the Eagles. Mm-hmm. And I think the Eagles offense is not an elite level offense. So, I mean, I think it's a good matchup. And I mean, the thing that scares me the most is the air attack with Brady, and then you got all these guys. And I don't know, I've seen headlines about Gronkowski being ruled out or in. It's different every day.
He just came back to practice like today as we're filming. So
okay. Yeah, I think that's a big difference. If Gronk is in there, then that's he just commands so much space, and it's just physically imposing. That when he's on top of his game, he's hands down like the best, like the best receiving option.
Yeah,
on the Patriots, and that's the biggest threat, I believe, because the Patriots run game, it's decent. I mean, it's not to be overlooked, but it's definitely not something you have to worry about, especially when you have a solid front seven like the Eagles do.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a good matchup because, like, I did a comparison for all the players, and like the offense for the Patriots, I think I picked 7 Patriots over 4 Eagles, but then the Eagles was the complete opposite. Like I picked 7 Eagles on my team and 4 Patriots, so it's a good matchup overall.
Yeah, I think another concern on the offensive end would be just hoping the lights aren't too bright for anybody, because all these guys haven't been to a Super Bowl except for LeGarrette Blount. But I think just getting the nerves, if there are any, getting those out of the way ahead of time, and then so coming in, you're just it's just another game. I think that's what you need to treat it as. I mean,
yeah, because the Patriots are going to be that same way too. They've been there quite a bit, so you got to have that same kind of mentality about it.
Yeah, this is routine for the Patriots. It's nothing new. So they're like, Tom Brady's not having to clear his head because he's used to all these people screaming at him and high stakes games. And I mean, Foles, it's Foles is definitely. I'm not concerned because I mean he's gonna do what he does. I'm just hoping we have more of the Vikings game more so than the Falcons game.
Yeah,
from production wise with Nick Foles.
Yeah, because the production for Foles was like he was efficient in that Falcons game, but he wasn't like getting the job. Like he wasn't finishing it. And then like NFC Championship game, he was balling. He was making some really good throws. So
definitely,
I like when this is a game that's going to be close. I think there's going to be a couple of key matchups. In terms of receivers, I want to see how Brandon Cooks lines up with Darby. Probably, I think that'll be a good matchup as the number 1 receiver for the Patriots versus the number 1 corner. I think the run game for the Patriots will be interesting. I like the combo of or the trio, I guess, of Lewis, Burkhead, and White. I think they all bring something different. But the Eagles are also the number 1 rush defense in the league. So you want to see what they're going to do, if they're going to be able to stop them on because White and Lewis especially are those guys that you're going to use in the receiving game. So that'll be interesting. How are you going to stop Gronk? That'll be the big test, because the the Steelers, they couldn't do it. They literally just could not do it in their Week 15 matchups. So
definitely, and I really like Michael Kendricks and how he's grown into really, because I think he started out as an inside linebacker too, and then I think he's definitely grown into that, like, the good solid team leader. You know, he's not gonna blow you away. You know, he's not one of these all-star like JJ Watt or, you know, anybody like that, but he's really solid and he does what he needs to do, and he's a good captain for the defense. And I think I like him on Gronk. I mean, as much as anybody matches up with a guy like Gronk, because I mean, he's just a giant out there. So I like the matchup, especially with the front seven. The front seven I'm very confident in, because I mean, Patriots have solid, I mean, like you said, solid offense, or well, not solid, a great offense. But I mean, Eagles have a great defense. And yeah, I'm definitely excited for Super Bowl Sunday.
I mean, how are you gonna feel if you beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl, getting that first ring? I mean, that's gonna be pretty crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I get to talk about it for the next 20 years now, because I mean, being from the Dallas area, all you hear is the 90s Cowboys Super Bowls, and it's like, okay, for the next 20 years.
I do hate that argument though. Like, every time you always see, like, you see a bunch of those Cowboys fans, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But
I'm really like a really solid. It's going to be a great experience if they win or lose. I mean, because I mean, there'd be the argument that if Wentz had played, it could have been a different game. And I mean, yes, it would be a different game if Wentz was playing. But I mean, you know, it's still essentially the same team aside from Wentz. So, and I mean, the defense is what put us in the position that we're in. Especially if you look at like the Falcons game, where I mean, yes, the Falcons offense didn't produce as much as it normally would have, but it's definitely the defense that got us to where we're at.
Yeah, I think it's a solid matchup with the Patriots offense, Eagles defense. I think it'll also be interesting, obviously, to see the reverse side, how both teams are going to adapt to that side. So I like the chances. This is obviously an Eagles team that wants to. I think coming into the season was to develop. That was their goal, was to enhance their game, and getting this far obviously is a huge accomplishment. It just kind of sees where it goes there, but there's also a big future ahead of them. So they've got a lot of time, especially with Wentz coming back next year. So
definitely.
I think that's gonna do it. Thank you, Devin, for being on the video. I appreciate getting the Eagles fan. You know, I obviously Cowboys fan. Seeing these Eagles teams a little different, but I still like good football. More than anything else, I like good football, and I can't be biased. So
definitely,
I do appreciate it. And for the bottom line viewers, subscribe to the channel. You know, we're doing a lot of this Super Bowl hype. This is right before the Super Bowl, so we'll be having a recap after the game, a little after that. We'll still be posting more football content even after the Super Bowl ends. You know, lists, countdowns, old history stuff. You know, just watch out for the channel. It's going to be very good the next couple months, even after the season's over. So for Devin, it's Dylan on the Bottom Line View.